Josh Heupel is headed home. The former Oklahoma Sooner star, offensive coordinator, and now Tennessee Volunteer coach will look for revenge in the place that made him an icon. Week 4 is upon us, and what better place to start than the game of the week? Tennessee versus Oklahoma. Welcome on into SEC Unfiltered. He's Dave Shumate. I'm Cole Thompson, breaking down everything that we will see on Saturday as the Sooners look to pull off the upset in their own backyard. College game day is going to be there, and there are storylines galore. But real quickly, make sure you hit subscribe down below because it's your number one source for all things SEC coverage. Download the podcast version of the show wherever you get your podcast listening systems. Follow Dave on Twitter at Mock10Sports, me on Twitter at Mr. Cole Thompson. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, wherever you got social media at SEC Unfiltered. And to check out all of our great work, make sure that you visit SECUnfiltered.com. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Use the promo code SECU at sign up on the Prize Picks app to get a $50 instant play with your first $5 lineup. You want to win some money? You want to make some good bets? You want to talk about Jackson Arnold versus Nico Iamaleava, the pick that could be the difference maker? Make sure you do so at Prize Picks. Use the promo code SECU whenever you download the Prize Picks apps. It's an undefeated bout in Norman, Dave. This is a matchup that we have been talking about all offseason. There's a lot of people that are looking at this team in Oklahoma. Last week's massive win over Tulane. You won 4 quarters of action. And when you're Tennessee, you haven't really played anybody. But at the same time, the storyline has been, regardless of who the competition is, it's a faceless name and the same results. Domination, domination, domination. But we know at Oklahoma Stadium this weekend, it is going to be a must-see spectacle.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is the one I think me and you talked about it in the summer, Cole. I think a lot of people in the summer. This is the one you had circled like a top 3 to 5 game in the conference. I don't know, depending who you talk to, it's all subjective, who they would vote the number 1 SEC conference game going into the season. I think this was definitely in the conversation, as you mentioned, because I think everybody thought Tennessee would be pretty good this year, have a real good shot rolling into undefeated in this game like they are. Oklahoma felt the same way unless they stubbed their toe. They haven't. They have some questions, but they haven't stubbed their toe. And then obviously the Heupel, Oklahoma, Bob Stoops. We saw today Bob Stoops has already put out a statement for both sides of this. It almost was like a WWE WrestleMania match we've been previewing for a month.
This is like Vince McMahon coming out and saying, I'm just going to let them do battle in the field. That's what we're dealing with today. That's it.
It does feel like a true WWE WrestleMania storyline that they hype up for a month. And again, nobody's hyping it up for a month, but this is just the kind of the first real opportunity both of these teams, I feel like, have a chance to really lose in a game this year. It's going to be fun, though. It's like you said, you got 2 young bucks at quarterback, as we talked about, Nico Iamaleava, and we got Jackson Arnold as well. So that's going to be fun. I think the matchup I'm really looking forward to, though, is just the chess match between Brent Venables, Zach Alley from an Oklahoma defensive side attacking the Josh Heupel offense on that side. I think it's going to be a fun cat and mouse game that I'm really looking forward to. It's the key matchup I'm looking forward to. But overall, man, this is going to be that night game, that atmosphere. I know Oklahoma struggled, but man, I think this is going to be a lot closer game than some people think.
Regardless of how you feel about Oklahoma, their offensive line, the personnel, the inability to run the football with the consistent lead back, they're winning. They're winning football games. They come into this matchup undefeated. They'll have the home crowd support. And more importantly, they had the momentum to go ahead and set a statement in this game. Many people, me not being one of them, but many people wrote off Oklahoma at the start of the year, thinking that once we got to conference play, everything was going to come off the track. 6-6, maybe 7-5. We're going to see regression. This is not going to be a team that we can build on from last season. They got 10 wins. And I'm sitting here saying, well, why? Why is that? You have a young quarterback in Jackson Arnold that's only going to get better with time. You have a young wide receiver core that at this point can finally test its limits against a better secondary. You also have a defense that's kept you in games and been the reason why you're coming away with not just wins, but clear massive victories in different scenarios where all of us last week thought, well, Tulane's going to make this thing interesting. And the defense said, Cole, Dave, SEC Unfiltered, the national narrative, go ahead and shut the hell up. We're done listening to what you have to say because they easily beat that spread. And so now we're talking about this game as what could be a setting stone moment for Brent Venables, for Jackson Arnold, for this offense headlined by Seth Luttrell, Deion Burks having a breakout moment. As much as we want to talk about Tennessee, and we're going to get to them, don't worry. This feels like everything is lining up for if you want to come swinging in the SEC, be compared to right alongside Texas, you get to strike first if you're Oklahoma.
Yeah, and also, too, it's Seth Luttrell, another storyline in there. You just mentioned him, the Oklahoma OC, former North Texas head coach. He was the fullback on the 2000 Oklahoma National Championship team when Heupel was the quarterback. So it's another storyline to throw in there. I think that's kind of where the game's going to be won, though, Cole. I think on the other side, I'm excited to watch the chess piece, the chess match between Venables, Alley versus Heupel. I do think this game is going to be determined who has the most success on the front between Bill Bedenbaugh's group, Seth Luttrell's group, versus Rodney Garner and Tim Banks. I think that's really where it's going to be decided, really there in the second half. Another matchup that's fun to watch. Also, I think Oklahoma injury-wise, who do they have coming back at the wide? They've been missing like four out of their top five threats on the outside have been out outside of Deion Burks. It looks like they're getting Nick Anderson back this week. That should help. Can they block that Tennessee front that's as good as a front as Tennessee's had probably since going back to when Philip Fulmer was there in the mid-2000s for sure?
We got to call a spade a spade. 9 sacks so far for Jackson Arnold. But the thing that does stand out about him is his speed element. The fact that he can create plays with his legs. Currently leads the team in rushing yards. 4.4 yards per play. 2 rushing touchdowns. Had 2 big scores against Tulane with his legs. Did have a costly interception. But ultimately, how you won that game was the consistency and the maturation of a quarterback that has taken the reins over. What I'm really interested to see if I'm Oklahoma in this game is how can I attack that secondary? Because the thing is, we have not seen an explosive offense go toe-to-toe with Tennessee just yet. Yes, you could say that NC State, when we talk about what they were as a program, we had high expectations that Casey Concepcion, this Grayson McCall, Justin Jolie, Nola Rogers was going to be formidable, but they had nothing. It was an anemic offense. It was basically dead by the start of the third quarter. You played against Kent State. You played against Chattanooga. You haven't seen an explosive offense that can take the tops off of defenses the way that Oklahoma can. Even though they have question marks at the wide receiver spot, you don't question the vertical speed. You don't question the arm strength of Jackson Arnold. So if you're looking at this from a perspective of just Seth Luttrell, knowing that Tim Banks has gotten this defensive front to be able to bull rush and beat the living dog breaks out of offensive lines, knowing that your offensive line may have some question marks, I am extending plays as deep as possible. The second that I get a read at the line of scrimmage, if I'm Jackson Arnold, I'm uncorking it. I'm trying to get those explosive plays. Because the thing about this offense is it can be explosive when all the pieces are coming together and they're getting the pieces back. And if all else fails, you got a good tight end in Bauer Sharp who can be that security blanket, move the sticks, get you into second and comfortable, third and short, those opportunities that present itself that make this ball game interesting.
No, I think you're 100% right, Cole. I think you hammered it. If I'm Seth Luttrell then this week, I'm getting the ball out quick. I'm going to utilize him. I'm going to utilize Jackson Arnold in the run game. Like you said, I'm going to test that Tennessee secondary. And I may regret it. But again, I don't know. Like, again, it's like you said, NC State. I felt like in that game, if Tennessee could get up 2 scores against NC State, it would probably be a snowball effect in a negative way for NC State, in a positive way for Tennessee. Just because, as we talked about, Grayson McCall and Concepcion, it's not really – they got to play within the game, control the game the whole time for NC State to really win a football game. They're not going to come back from behind. Oklahoma, they get guys like Nick Anderson back, have the athletes. Emmett Jones' wide receiver crew has athletes to go test that Tennessee secondary. Probably, if everybody's healthy, it's probably an advantage that – and again, this could be Tennessee could be improved, but again, this could be an average secondary for Tennessee. And Oklahoma probably has the advantage if they can protect. Now, that's the key. Can they protect? That's why I don't think I could be wrong. I don't think they're going to sit back there and let Jackson Arnold just hang out in the pocket. It's going to be real quick, throw off play action. I'm with you, though. I'm going to test that Tennessee secondary because the only guy I really trust back there, and again, they have some other guys, but it's not been proven. Outside of Jermod McCoy, the Oregon State transfer, he's the only guy I really have some probably confidence in, probably the best corner Tennessee's had since Heupel's been in Knoxville going back to 2021. But I would like it to be tested. And again, I may regret that. I may give up a sack, but I feel like you would be playing into Tennessee's game if you're just going to try to keep it short. That's what they want to do because their front seven's so good. I'm with you. I think you've got to take a chance and test a secondary that has not been good under Willie Martinez, has not been good since Josh Heupel's been there. I think it is improved this year. But we don't know. We really don't know.
The question is that you allowed 6.9 yards per play on the ground to Jackson Arnold if you were Tulane. The difference is that this is not Tulane's defense. The thing that we can give a lot of credit to for Tim Banks is while there are question marks in the secondary, that front seven is one of the best in the SEC, if not the best in the SEC. I've been on record saying that their linebacking core, especially when it comes to Peely, that is the most underappreciated group in all of college football. To me, that is when we talk about guys that do not garner the enough amount of respect at the national stage, it's Tennessee's linebacking room. That front seven and most of that defensive line might be the best in the SEC if it isn't the best in the SEC. I still don't think we have seen James Pierce be able to hit his next level. Like there's always that one game. I remember watching Will Anderson countless times, and I would go back and say, where's that moment where he's going to break out? Oh, and then it was against LSU. And immediately you saw him catch fire as a freshman. Yep. That is why he is eventually going to be a top tier pick. And we haven't seen that from James Pierce just yet, but maybe this is the game where they say, you know what? Just play bull rush, go all out, use your finesse, use your power, use your straight line speed, get in the backfield. They have to establish, I think, a consistent offense if you're Oklahoma. The question is, can you do that when you play with question marks on the offensive line and also just a front seven that has been able to bully opponents into making critical mistakes at the right time that gives them an opportunity for their offense to strike? And here's the crazy part, Dave. You and I both know this watching a Heupel offense. It does not take long to strike. Lightning may not hit the ground in the same location, but it could easily hit within a couple of miles of each other. That is the way this offense moves in Knoxville. Quick, quick, quick. Keeps you guessing. Never allows you to get comfortable. They are basically not floating like a butterfly and stinging like a bee. They are just immediately hammering you like a hornet.
Cole, could you see Tennessee getting off to a little bit of a slow start offensively here?
Could I? Yeah, I think we could. And we'll get to that in a moment. But I feel like for me, what's going to be the difference maker is having an established offense for Oklahoma. Like for me, when I look at this, it all comes down to, can Oklahoma play that ground game and consistently milk the clock? Because again, for Tennessee's sake, you don't need a lot of time to be able to score. You just got to go ahead and slice and dice and weave your way through. And I think that they can do that.
Yeah, again, I think this game in the first half, the halftime adjustments will be key. But I do think the initial game plan of Allie and Venables is going to be a formidable one. It's Nico's first true road start. It's his first true road start. I mean, you say what you want. I mean, again, he hasn't had that breakout game yet. Granted, I mean, he had some unbelievable throws against UT Chattanooga that would have been completed against Georgia, Alabama, whoever's on the schedule. It just is what it is. This will be an environment, though, that he's never played in. I mean, it's not so crazy. I don't even know how you could argue that. Oklahoma's first SEC game at home. Josh Heupel's coming back. It's at night, college game day. Everybody's going to be there. I could see him getting a little too quick a feed at times. It'll be interesting. Does Oklahoma spy him with a guy like Kip Lewis? That's who I would probably, the more athletic, undersized guy would probably be their guy. I think would probably spy him. It wouldn't be Stutzman, but I could be wrong. But that's who I would gas off going off the film. Would probably be Kip Lewis. But I'm interested in the chess match. I know I've said that earlier, but I'm fired up to see the chess match overall from this game because I do think Nico being this first start at Memorial Stadium, this could be something that Oklahoma would do. First half, I'm telling you, I like Oklahoma a lot in the first half in this.
It's going to be, I think, a chess match, like you've said. I think it's also going to be one of these back and forth battles to where it may come down to one final play. But let's talk about Tennessee's offense, because I think the storyline has not been Nico. As much as people want to talk about Nico and how he has looked, he's been great. And everything that you see that has been a flaw is correctable. There's a reason why they believe that he is the greatest quarterback athletically to come through the building since Peyton Manning. And arguably, he fits exactly the style of offense that Josh Heupel wants to run. And to me, that's the big difference between last year with Joe Milton and this year with Nico. There's a comfortability, there's a familiarity. Everyone seems to be on the same page. And there seems to be just a connective level of where these wide receivers are able to build off of their success. But the storyline for Tennessee, besides their defense, has been the rushing attack. Dylan Sampson has been phenomenal. I do not care if they played Bumble Skunk University or if they play Testicle Tech. It does not matter the level of competition. Dylan Sampson is acting like an RB1. Dylan Sampson has proven to me with 9 rushing touchdowns, over 5 yards per play, that he is an elite running back in the SEC and a set mark for most of this volunteer offense. And if you have this run game at a level, we all know this, the ability to attack the over-the-top vertical threat for Tennessee is what makes them lethal. But Josh Heupel loves to have a balanced ground game, and he has that right now with a very good headline tailback. And we haven't even had to worry about a Cam Seldon coming on in. We haven't had to worry about a number 2 because of the level of success we have seen from Sampson. And in my opinion, this is going to be where you really are going to trust, I think, Tennessee, because if Oklahoma can't stop the run, I don't know if you even have to worry about the passing in this game.
No, I agree. The storyline for Tennessee has not been the best. It's been the running game, defense, and special teams. The passing game, again, but it's a little misnomer, though. Heupel in a perfect world, he's just like Lincoln. They want to run the football at hard. It's just a numbers game in the box. You go in 5 or 6 in the box. I know some people are a little bit concerned about Tennessee's passing game. I'll defend them a little bit here, though. It feels like they've really only thrown off the RPO. But that passing game in 22 with Hendon Hooker really didn't get going until they went on the road and beat beat LSU in that noon kick. Everything kind of broke their way. That's when you kind of felt like bombs over Baghdad for them there a little bit. And it kind of continued throughout the rest of the year until about the South Carolina game. But so maybe it gets going here. I'm sure everybody, it just seems like has been dropping 8 and daring them to run and see if they can. They've been successful doing it, obviously. Again, I would love to be a fly on the wall this week in the Oklahoma defensive staff room. That would be, if you could make me go into any coordinator room this week, it would be hands down twice a week. Every day, twice on Sunday, I would be in that room.
2 turnovers last week, I think, for Oklahoma really was a big statement. Danny Stutzman has been continuing.
It's an older group. They played a lot of football together. It's a very custom. So, and again, this may be the best defense they see all year from a top to bottom from this early in the year, where the schedule is, where it comes up on the schedule. Nico's first road game, Tennessee's first true road game. It's a veteran defense. They may not have the best personnel across the board, but in my opinion, I think they have the least amount of question marks in all 3 levels.
I think the biggest player that I've been impressed with so far for Oklahoma's defense is Robert Spears-Jennings. He has just been a highlight reel. The man is someone on a mission that is just a heat-seeking missile trying to go ahead and decapitate somebody. That's the way he plays football. But he does it in such a clean way that I think that his value, being able to go ahead and line up opposite of Danny Stutzman, his value of being a defensive back that does a little bit of everything, it affects the way that this game goes. For me, what I'm looking at from the offensive perspective, on top of having a great ground game, is how quickly and decisive we watch as Nico Iamaleava translate in this game. Because you brought it up, when you look back at that game in Charlotte, as much as you want to say it was a road atmosphere, you wouldn't be wrong because it wasn't in Neyland Stadium, but Volunteer Country travels. Volunteer Country took over Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte. It was very much a 65-35 in favor of the orange and white that afternoon. So clearly, you have not been to an environment that has been built like this. And the bread and butter of Oklahoma is the standard on defense. And I'm not going to sit here and deny that you're going to go up against tougher competition throughout the year. Georgia's defense, there are some major question marks when it comes to the depth of the defensive line. I think there's some question marks when it comes to the depth of the secondary. Alabama, the explosive plays so far have been a hit and miss. You're going to have to be able to contain a guy like Nico in that perspective, but it's going to get better. But from just the here and now moment, what I look at in this game is how quickly can you assess a defensive secondary? How quickly can you assess where the blitzes are coming? How quickly can you survey the field, make the proper reads, and continuously attack? And in my opinion, I'm not looking for Nico to be this guy that comes out and delivers performances of deep ball, 50-yard blast, Uncle Rico over the mountain. I just want to see consistency. I want to see throws like the one that you saw from Brew McCoy, where he just barely threaded the needle a little too high, landed right in the hand of an NC State defender. He makes that read. And if he does, how quickly they're able to get up to the line of scrimmage and keep the defense of Oklahoma guessing. To me, that is the chess match of all chess matches.
Yeah, a kid, it could also affect that a little bit too. I think had a pretty good game. Had some closeout sacks. For Oklahoma was the R. Mason Thomas kid against Tulane. Finished well in the second half, had a couple of big sacks. Tennessee, a little bit. You feel like you go back and watch it, a little bit of NC State. There were some protection issues, but again, I mean, you got Lance Hurd, who's done a good job out there for them initially so far to start the season. You also, here's the depth chart. John Campbell's played well. Yeah, I don't know. I'll be interested to see what the blitz simulations they've brought this week. Again, I think that is going to be key. Just overall, though, there's so many storylines, so many matchups you could go back to. But Cole, I think you hammered it initially. I'm with you. If I am if I'm Seth Luttrell, if I'm Brent Venables, I'm telling him, like, hey, we don't know, but we at least got to go put our hand in the hole, man. We got to try now. We may get our hand bitten by a snake putting it down there, but we got to go test that Tennessee secondary. We have to. I mean, I think if we're just going to go try to dink and dunk it and keep them off the field, you may get yourself in a little bit of you may get yourself a little in trouble from that perspective, because like they may be had still. Again, outside of McCoy, I don't trust anyone. Not saying they can, just because there's no proven production yet. Doesn't mean they can't. I just hadn't seen it because I don't think they've seen an offense that can stretch the field like Oklahoma can if they get some guys back healthy at wide receiver and they can protect Jackson Arnold. Again, this is one of the bigger games of the conference slate. I'm fired up just from a matchup standpoint here. I wish we were honestly going this one.
Dave, when you and I always do shows, we talk about one player that we're watching. For Tennessee, in my opinion, it's Squirrel White. You have a speed threat. You have a guy that can catch anything because he literally is just speeding through school zones. He's making plays. He is going to be a challenge at the line of scrimmage for any defensive back. This is why you bring him in. You have your big-bodied receiver in Dante Thornton. You have your physical receiver in Brew McCoy. You have a guy that just seems to be making highlight catch after highlight catch in practice, and Chris Brazzell, the Tulane transfer. But you have a speed threat. And when you have the demon that can easily find a way to be a Speedy Gonzalez and take the top off of defenses, with the arm strength of Nico, you may only get 2 or 3 plays that allow you to go ahead and deliver the spiral. But at the same time, you need to capitalize on those plays, because of this, again, comes down to how quickly can you assess a defense and how quickly can you make these reads. And if you're Nico, this is your moment to really set a standard for the new version of the SEC. And I'm talking about you in that category alongside all these veterans, Carson Beck, Jackson Dart, you throw in Quinn Ewers, you throw in Jalen Milroe. You are just as talented as them, despite being a young up-and-comer who's only played a handful of games in his entire career. Yet everything that you have learned from the time that you step foot onto the field has translated to this moment. And I feel like that this is a moment where you need Squirrel White, a guy that is able to easily win at the line of scrimmage and just fly his way down the football field for 6. I'm paying close attention to him in this matchup.
Yeah, I'm going to go. If we're going to go with a Tennessee offensive player, you saying Tennessee players in general?
Just in general. Don't worry about offensive.
I'm going to go. I'm going to stay on your side of the rock here, though, Colbert. I think you're on to something here. The low-hanging fruit would be the secondary. I mean, you could go Jermod McCoy. You could go Ricky Gibson, Andre Turntine, any of those guys. I'm going to go a little bit here because I think it may be open if Nico can be patient. Because, again, you talked about Squirrel White taking the top off the defense. I could see Oklahoma trying to prevent that. At the same time, them trying to stop the run with just 5 defenders. I think they're thinking they're going to, I think, bet on themselves there. The position, I should really say, maybe not even the guy. The position that may be able to leak out and pick up some yards for Tennessee is the tight end spot with the Bama transfer Miles Kittelman, Holding Days coming over from Notre Dame. Those guys, maybe even Ethan Davis, the redshirt freshman, that could be someone that could bleed out that Oklahoma's like, oh, crap. Like, we brought a blitz in the A-gap, and they just hit him out there in the flats, and we had people covering deep because we're worried about either Brew McCoy or Squirrel White, like you mentioned. I could see Kitzelman or Stays having a big game here. That's somebody I would be factored in that Oklahoma does not need to overlook in game preparation, because they haven't had some massive takeover game yet, that tight end spot. But it could be a major factor in second, third down here, I think, in this game. So I'm going to go to the tight end spot in general between those two guys, Holden Stays and the Alabama transfer Miles Kitzelman.
I know. I hope that we're not going to be the exact same, but when I think of Oklahoma, I'm thinking of defense. I'm thinking of Brent Venables, him being able to scheme up against a great offensive mastermind, and probably a reason why Tennessee is close to being back to the level that they were in 1998. But I look at Connie Walker, the defensive back. I think that when you look at how he's played 3 pass breakups, he's done a really good job of creating opportunities in the open field. 1 interception on the year. He's going to be tasked with taking away a Chris Brazzell, taking away a Brew McCoy, taking away a Dante Thornton. And so far, those have been the top 3 targets for Nico this year. When you look back at the numbers, on first down, on third down, it's 5, it's number 11, and it's number 1. Those are the dudes that Nico loves to target. So if Connie Walker is basically eliminating 1/3 of your best interest, then you have to start playing a little bit more aggressive. You probably are going to force them into making a little bit more mistakes. And so I'm looking at Connie Walker being the dude that if you can go and win at the point of attack, be physical at the line of scrimmage, and show why you are this version of Brent Venables' best defensive back, alongside with Billy Bowman and Peyton Bowen on the back end, who can create those turnovers, I feel like that is something that is going to extremely bode well in your favor if you're Oklahoma, getting off the field against a young quarterback that is still learning how to play at an elite level.
I'm gonna go with the low-hanging fruit here because I think it's pretty black and white. If he doesn't play well, they're not going to win this football game. It's Jackson Arnold.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, the low-hanging fruit too would also be the offensive line spot. But again, you're only as strong as your weakest link out of the 5 guys playing. So it's tough to just put it on one person. Them as a unit, Bill Beanbo got to get right. But again, Jackson Arnold's got to get them in the right protections, the slide protections. Jackson Arnold has to play well. I don't see any world where he just kind of plays average to poor, obviously poor, but even average for them to win this football game. He's probably going to have to go out duel Nico. I don't know what that stat line will be for either one of them. I think he's going to have to play well. If he doesn't, Oklahoma is not going to win this football game, even if he just plays average. If he plays really well, I think Oklahoma can win this game, and they will be in this in the fourth quarter. So I think this game comes down to Jackson Arnold, his first start in the SEC as well.
7:30, 6:30 Central kick at Memorial Stadium in Norman on ABC. College Game Day is going to be there. A ton of media is going to be there. The bright lights are back in the SEC on the newcomers and potentially the new risers that are looking to make a statement. Dave, let's lock in our predictions. The over-under set at 57.5. The line set at -7.5. I'll go first. I truly believe that we will be seeing the 2 best quarterbacks going into 2025 in the SEC go toe-to-toe in week 4. I believe that Jackson Arnold is special. I believe that Jackson Arnold in this offense can work. I believe that Jackson Arnold, even though there have been some very big miscommunications, there have been some very big overall, I would say, downtrodden plays. You haven't seen the elite version of him that many expected. The way that you saw it last year with Dylan Gabriel, it will come. You have to give him time. You also have to realize the level of competition that he has played against has gotten rigorously more tough, more challenging. You've seen different stunts. You've seen different formations. You've seen different defensive coordinators that are able to corral young players into making mistakes. That's just the bottom line. And so I can't say that simply because if he has not lived up to the same hype as Nico, that doesn't mean he's going to be good. I still think that when you get back a healthy Nick Anderson, his arm strength is going to connect. That is a relationship that we saw last year down in San Antonio blossom into something that was really promising. And I think that Deion Burks, again, is a human cheat code. This is a guy that can be your difference maker. And then if all else fails, Bauer Sharp has really come on as a quality tight end. I also believe that there is something about Nico playing in an offense that just feels like he is so comfortable. There is no panic. There is a lot of poise. There is a lot of confidence. There is a lot of consistency. And even though the competition is going to be that much more challenging, the atmosphere is going to be against you. Those fans that bleed the crimson and cream, they love the Sooners and they will make you feel the pressure for 4 quarters on end inside of Memorial Stadium. I just feel like that even though you don't know what you're going to see from these wide receivers, the speed element, the ability to create plays outside the pocket, his mobility, what we saw him do against a Dave Duran type defense in Charlotte, it's going to allow him to capitalize and get a win. I do think that this is a close call. I do think that you will see both quarterbacks have a turnover in this game. I do believe that you will see this go down to the 4th quarter. It will be ravenous in Norman, all the way up until probably about the 3-minute mark. And then at that point, I think that you will see a critical mistake from Jackson Arnold. I think that you will get either a fumble, a turnover through an interception. You're going to watch as Nico headlines a drive. I think you're right. He's going to connect with one of the tight ends. I'm going to go with Holden Stays in this one. I think final score is 37-34. Close call. Going to hit the over on this game. You're going to see these defenses give up explosive plays. You're going to feel confident if you're Oklahoma and Jackson Arnold moving forward. But it just feels like Nico, this offense headlined by Josh Heupel, he gets revenge when he gets to go back home.
Yeah, I mean, this biggest game at home they've had, in over a decade, probably depending what Oklahoma State Bedlam game, because obviously Texas is in the Cotton Bowl every year, so they don't get that game at home when they're in the Big 12. This is a massive game, though. I mean, the atmosphere set the storyline, feels WrestleMania-ish. Like The Rock would be coming on Raw multiple weeks in a row for it. It kind of feels like that. I do think this game is going to come down to Tennessee's defense, though. I think Oklahoma's defense gets a defensive score themselves. I just trust Tennessee's front. I think the bigger matchup, the one I'm most excited about, like I mentioned, is the chess match between Venables, Alley versus Heupel. I think this game's going to come down to a different one, though, like I mentioned earlier. I think it's going to be Tennessee's front 7 against the Oklahoma offensive line. I think Oklahoma's offensive line holds their own for a bit. I think this game in the first, I don't know what it is. It's probably 3.5, the first half line. I'd probably take Oklahoma in that. Wouldn't shock me if Oklahoma's up. Wouldn't shock me if they're within a score. I kind of expect them to be within a score. But I'm with you, Cole. I think come the fourth quarter, I think Oklahoma, Jackson Arnold has a critical turnover because of Tennessee's pressure, whether that's James Pierce, Joshua Josephs, Big O, Amari Thomas, Omar Norman Lott, Bryce, and he said somebody get some big play, maybe a score, a defensive touchdown. I just think Tennessee's defense is the difference. I think that's the mismatch right now because Tennessee's developed this group, Rodney Garner, Tim Banks, and them. This is 3 to 4 recruiting classes in. They've had their guys. I think Tennessee gets it done. I think it's close to about the middle of the fourth quarter, the back-breaking turnover. I think Tennessee ends up winning this game 34-27. Wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being Tennessee kicks a field goal late to make it 2 scores. And obviously it's not a traditional double-digit win because it's closer. But I can see something like that. I think the mismatch right now on the defense is just too much for Oklahoma to go straight up win the game. I do expect Oklahoma to have a good plan, though. I think they're going to have a good plan. It's going to be a great test for Jackson Arnold and Nico Iamaleava. I'm fired up. I've said that a million times. You can probably tell I'm fired up for this game. I think
Dave,
go ahead.
When we look back at this game, we watched last week as South Carolina decided to defy the odds and play down to the wire with LSU, a team that many people thought going into the year was going to be one of these sleepers for a college football playoff simply because of what they brought in. They had question marks, but overall, you felt good. I still feel like that's Oklahoma this year. Oklahoma can have that South Carolina moment where the home atmosphere does bode well in their favor. If they don't make any critical mistakes, this is going to be, I think, a top 5 game by the season's end in college football. Not in the SEC, in college football. That's how talented these two rosters are. And I think that the nation's going to have to start respecting the Sooners. They are right alongside Texas when it comes to how they are building for success. And it does feel like that they are a team that is going to be able to hold their own in the conference sooner rather than later. But ultimately, when you look at Tennessee, they feel like that they're on step number 3 when Oklahoma maybe is on step number 2. It's that one step ahead that currently keeps them at bay and ultimately is why I think that we're going to see a win for the Volunteers.
Yeah, unfortunately for Oklahoma, they have the offensive line issues, the guys that have left. It's a ton of people to replace in a season, no matter who you are. Bill Beedmoser, a phenomenal offensive line coach, but they draw Tennessee the year Tennessee's had their best defensive front in 15 to 20 years. So it's just a tough draw. Looking forward to it. Should be a fun game, back and forth, chess match. Hey, you're right, Cole. I can see this being a top 5 SEC game of the season and definitely heading into it. It's got a lot of juice, a lot of momentum, a lot of storylines to it, and a lot of good football coaches involved in this one.
Who comes out on top, Boomer Sooner or Rocky Top? Comment down below your thoughts, your overall score predictions. Make sure that also you like, rate, review, subscribe. Follow us on the social channels, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at SEC Unfiltered. Make sure you follow the madman Dave Shumate at Mach10 Sports. Scream at me on Twitter at Mr. Cole Thompson. Download the podcast version of the show and check out all of our great work found at SECUnfiltered.com. For Dave Shumate, I'm Cole Thompson. Rocky Top, Boomer Sooner. We're just going to get a damn good game later.